Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of Power Tips coming at you. And today we're excited to dig into Power Apps Maker Welcome content. And yes, I read it because every time I try and say it, I screw it up. So had to read through it. But Heidi's going to lead us through a little demo, and then we'll have a little discussion on our thoughts and what we think, how this may or may not impact organizations. So Heidi, over to you.
Thanks, Malcolm. So I figured I would start by giving you a brief overview of what this Maker Welcome content is. There was a blog that came out a few weeks ago. So this went general availability in May. So it's available to you today to play around with. And basically what this is doing is adding a pop-up welcome message to your makers. So this will appear anytime someone navigates to make.powerapps.com. It has one requirement, and that is that you're using a managed environment, easy to update if you haven't done it yet. And the note from Microsoft does talk about expanding this in the future, don't know when, for Power Automate, Copilot Studio, and Power Pages. So you can try it out now in Power Apps so that you are ready to rock and roll when it's everywhere. This is a quick how-to of how to enable it, which we are going to do after this. It's really simple. It's something that you're going to apply at the Power Platform Admin Center. So I will show you that in a few minutes. And then when you get to the maker content itself, it's a couple things you need. You need to write it in Markdown or use PowerShell. I used Markdown in ChatGPT to format my Markdown from natural language. You need an image URL that's hosted somewhere, and then you need to know what you're going to add to the Learn More URL. So this is the image we will be using just for fun. And with no further ado, I'm going to take you on a demo. All right, so to apply this, you have to go to the Power Platform Admin Center, select your environment. I have already taken the liberty of making this a managed environment. If you haven't yet, up in the ribbon, and you can click Enable Managed Environment, and that will simply toggle this to a managed environment. Now, to apply those settings, you'll click the same thing, Enable Managed Environments. So we want to scroll down until we find Maker Welcome Content. So I'm going to pull over the Markdown that I have, and I'm going to paste it in here. And then we're going to add a Learn More URL. And click Preview in New tab. And there is our beautiful welcome content that we will see. So I'm going to click Save and give this a chance to publish. And while it's doing that, can you guys tell me what your thoughts are around this?
Yeah, I think this is really cool. So I guess when we take it kind of back to the business, right? This is when we're talking about users, you're trying to enable more makers within your organization to get involved and start using Power Apps and start building in your environment. And this is a great way to share like exactly what Heidi is showing here, right? Share your guidelines, share what you want to be doing. And I think this could also pair really well with things like the automatically directing makers to a maker environment and all of those kind of other features that are coming out. Malcolm, what do you think?
I like that bullet 3 gives you support whenever you
Day or night.
That's amazing. I think so. Sorry if I was chuckling because as I was reading through it, I caught it and I couldn't help but laugh. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. But this all reminds me of a story that from way back. So I'll try and keep it super short, but this is super relevant. A long time ago, we had a large deployment, and I was, for a long time, people would ask, like, can we write workflows and can we do this? So we did a whole training session and we got them set up with everything I thought they needed. And, it was back in the day when I thought, oh, once I do training, it's good because then I've done it and then they know the information. And I didn't really understand at that point in time that training never ends. It's an ongoing scope. It just never stops. You always have to remind people and push people back to the content. So I didn't do that. And so weeks later, I had almost forgotten that we'd even done the training. Somebody comes up and says, I'm going to dive into doing a couple of workflows for our business unit. I was like, great, have at it. You got the training, you're good. Fast forward about a week and a half, not even probably. And I start getting notifications about our storage. And so that's weird. I wonder what's going on. So I start doing some digging in, and I discover that there is a workflow that was created that is an infinite loop, and it's taken up 30 some odd thousand instances of this workflow are now waiting for something to happen that will never happen. And it's one of those like CRM horror stories that every administrator probably learned, right? Way back when. You just have to be careful about this stuff. Had we had something like this, then when that individual went into that maker experience, now granted, back then it was very different, but there could have been some reminders to hey, don't forget some of these rules. Hey, don't forget to look at this resource. Of course, we can't control whether they actually click them and actually read them, but it would have been really useful. And I'd like to think that it would have mitigated that risk a little bit, that that person maybe would have been like, oh, I really need to think about that condition that I'm thinking about. Or even they could have called Kylie and gotten support at any time, day or night, and been able to kind of just walk through the logic, which would have been wise for me to put in, hey, before you do this, let's talk about it and let's go over your logic together. So this, to me, this kind of answers that question, because if you're not right in front of somebody's face with this kind of stuff, they don't necessarily remember that they've got that training material over on a team site or in a SharePoint location or in their email somewhere. They just forget about it and proceed. And if they're anything like me, we click first, think later, and that can get us into trouble. So this kind of forces us to think first and click later.
Yeah, and like
So
you
I
said,
don't know.
this gives them the resources at the beginning, and then we can pair it with the COE toolkit for you to monitor
Yeah.
from the other side to see what are people using, what connectors are happening, what flows are getting errors, all those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
And you can see we do have the option here to don't show this again. So it is nice, but if people don't like pop-ups, they can make it go away. But it is in this learn section if you ever need to come back. I think it's great. Oh, go ahead.
No, go.
I forgot to show one thing I wanted to point out, which is the image, if you don't mind if I back up for a second. Because I think it's worth, because when I first got to this, I was like, how am I going to host my image? And then I thought, I'll put it in my solution file as a web resource. So if you need to do this and you need an image, this is the quickest, easiest way that you can do it. When you do add a web resource, you're in a solution file, go to new web resource. You can upload any image that you want. Just make sure it's resized. You can see the first time I tried this, it was a giant image. That didn't work so well. So you can use an image resizer tool to get it down. But once this loads, there's a show more at the bottom, which will give you a link to the image. So if you didn't know that, you can use a web resource to power this.
Yeah, it makes
So-
sense because it doesn't need to be publicly accessible. It only needs
No.
to be accessible in your org. I wonder if the users need access to that environment to see it. But I guess
Oh, hey, good point. It is
Well-
unique to each environment because I did this on my blog for fun. And I have a completely different, oh, it didn't pop up. I must have checked the box. I have a different one on the other one. Maybe I just need to go here.
yeah, which then that makes sense, right? They have
Mhm.
have to have access to that environment, and then when they get there, okay, that makes sense. Cool.
Nice. I wonder if they're going to push down the path of, because one of the things before we talked about coming onto the call was, does this affect the user when they like launch Power Apps on their phone or something, and they're maybe selecting from a variety of apps? And I've always wondered if we could manipulate that text on there to welcome people in a custom way to that experience. So I wonder if this is maybe setting the foundation for that, because this is great for the maker side, but just the general user, same principle applies. And we used to do an automated email when a new user got added, same concept, saying, hey, here's a list of resources and things you need to think about as you dive into your Dynamics journey
Yeah.
for our organization. So it'd be cool to be able to do that to the general user who's opening it up. So
You gave me ideas. So you could also use this because you can edit this at any time. Like this isn't, now I've set this, I can't change it. So I can come in here and update this. So if you have important organizational announcements that you want to get out to your makers, you can just change this content entirely anytime you need
super
to.
cool. Very
Nice.
cool. Well, hopefully that gives everybody a good little overview. Heidi, thanks for driving the demo and giving us a show and tell on how this works. And it's super cool. A lot easier than I thought. When I read through it, I was like, it seems pretty straightforward, but to see it live is pretty cool. So thanks for giving us the tour, and we hope you enjoyed this. Leave your comments below if there's things that you think, what would you use this for? What messages would you put in? What resources would you link for people? That would be interesting to see how your thoughts and perspectives on that. Otherwise, we will see you on the next Power Tips. Bye, everybody.